So, Kenny, we are aboard the USCSS podcast, as everybody knows, right?
Of course.
This is an attempt to just jump right into the episode, something that I am not equipped to do smoothly. We are, we're still in the Zeta Reticuli system, but we're getting close to a planet, I think a planet, called KG 348.
It is a planet. It is a gas giant, but yes, It is a planet. That's correct.
Okay, well, I'm just looking out the window of our M-class military vessel that is sometimes a towing vessel when I introduce it, because who really cares?
Yeah, that's right.
And man, I'm just seeing a lot of wreckage. Is this the old Sevastopol station wreckage outside our windows here?
According to my star charts, yes, that is what used to be here.
Holy moly. Is this 17 or so episodes in, like, really kind of doubling down on the fact that we're on a starship? Is it too late for the concept of the podcast to introduce this now?
No, because it had to show up sometime, so maybe we should have brought it up earlier, but we're bringing it up now, and that's what matters, baby.
Yeah, I think we just got to really embrace, like, I didn't want this to be a show from space, right? But the truth is, we're just in space, so we might as well be a show from space.
Hey,
right?
There are worse things to be than a show from space.
Yeah. This is, of course, Crew Expendable. I am Maintenance Jack Operator Hallstrom.
And I am Insane Scavenger Rohrbacher.
Oh, man, I was almost that. And we're just a couple of working Joes patrolling the off-limits sectors of the alien universe.
Love it.
Pretty focused one this time,
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before we started recording, and we realized that we probably have a lot to say here, so we should probably just kind of, get into it.
It's going to be wild when we get through everything and it's only been half an hour.
Then you know what we'll have to do? We'll have to go back and start from the beginning and say, all right, we need to stretch everything out.
Just add pauses in between every sentence.
That's right. We're re-recording the whole episode and making it 3 times as long for no reason at all.
Sure. Yeah, we are. What are we talking about today, Crazed Scavenger Rohrbacher?
As we discussed at the end of the previous episode, we decided to do the novelization of the video game Alien Isolation.
Yeah, man. The 2019 novel adapting the 2014 video game. That game is it's almost 10 years old. It's 8 years old, dude.
Yeah, Doug. It is 8 fucking years old.
8 is almost 10, so that, it's closer to 10 than 5.
That is correct. Yes, it's one more closer.
I think I'm becoming space crazed like you are, dude. We got to get off this ship.
Well, we'll get off it when we, have the opportunity to. But for now, we got to broadcast.
We do. We have a duty. Company orders, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Alien Isolation, the novel written by Keith R.A. DeCandido. Shout out to the audiobook. I listened to the audiobook. Kenny, I believe you did as well.
Well, I've actually read this book twice.
Okay.
I listened to the audiobook back a few months ago when we first started talking about doing this show. I went through and listened to a couple of the audiobooks, and this is the one that I listened to, or one of them that I listened to. And then over the course of the last week, like after we decided to do this for this episode, rather than listening to the audiobook, I downloaded the ebook and physically read it on my phone while I was like on my lunch break at work or waiting for my food to cook while I was making dinner. And so I would just knock out chunks of it, like physically reading the book on my phone over the course of the last week.
Okay. I listened to the audiobook mostly on a drive home from South Carolina a couple of weeks ago, and then jumped back into like the midway point, like rewound a few hours and listened to the rest of it, like about half of it pretty recently. Some of the stuff is a little hazy for me, I'm not going to lie. Fortunately, it sounds like you've got some pretty in-depth notes, and I appreciate the work you put into this show, Kenny.
Thank you. I figured I may as well compensate by being as prepared as I can for the episodes. Like, I try to get in a bunch of work before the recording because after we're done recording, you're the one doing all the work, so.
I appreciate it. Unlike some podcast co-hosts who will not be named, who I really have to carry the whole show. Just kidding, everyone. I'm picking on Corey.
Oh, I thought you were talking about me.
No, not at all. No, just taking cheap shots at Corey to see if he listens to this. Spoiler alert, he won't, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I listened to the audiobook, published by Blackstone Audio, narrated by Sarah Molo Christensen. And I want to say it was a very enjoyable listen. I think that she's a great audiobook narrator. And I overall really, really enjoyed this.
Now, when you say that, do you mean the story or do you mean specifically the audiobook of it?
Both. I think both. I enjoyed this.
Right.
I really enjoyed the story. I like the things that they build on. I played the game. I played the game a very long time ago, about 8 years ago, really. Maybe 7 years ago. So I don't remember everything, but I remembered enough. So like when the stuff was coming up in the book, I was like, oh, I kind of remember that part. I definitely remember that part. Yeah, that part was cool. But I like the way the story is told in the novel. I like the way the story was read to me in the audiobook. This was a nice experience, and I'm going to go ahead and recommend checking out Alien Isolation, the novelization, even if you've played the game. If you're looking for a good Alien read or a good story to hear, here it is. All right?
Yeah, like if you're going into this story just to like see some bone-crunching Xenomorph action, this Xenomorph really messes some fucking people up over the course of this story.
Holy moly.
And like if you're looking for like, an expansion on the mythos and like, character building and world building and stuff.
Yeah.
This book also has it in spades because as we may have even said in the previous episode, the novelization adds a whole bunch of stuff to the book that was not in the game.
Yeah.
And all that stuff is like flashbacks and backstory and stuff.
Sure.
So if you're looking for character development, this game has a lot of it. Or the novel, has a lot of it.
It does. In fact, we are going to structure this episode in a very specific way. We're going to open with all of that sort of backstory stuff that we learn about Amanda Ripley and by some extension, Ellen Ripley, stuff that wasn't included in the video game. So if you've played the game or you want to play the game and don't want those events spoiled for you, or you've already experienced them, you can just get this front half of Amanda Ripley backstory, Ellen Ripley information. You can get all of that now, and then we'll give like a spoiler warning and say we are now jumping into the plots of the game, of what happens on Sevastopol Station. That'll be your spoiler warning. So you'll have the option of not having the really fun game spoiled for you if you want to go play it for yourself still.
For sure.
So with all that out of the way, should we jump into the history, the early life of Amanda Ripley, her journey up to being invited by Samuels to head to Sevastopol Station?
Let's do it. That's why we're here, after all.
All right. So pretty early on in the book, we do learn the name of Amanda Ripley's father, Ellen Ripley's, I suppose, husband at the time. I'm not sure if they were married or not.
They do say they were married, yes.
Okay. Man named Alex. Real piece of shit, this guy.
We literally only know three things about him. His name is Alex.
Yeah.
He was married to Ellen Ripley.
Yep.
And he suddenly left one day without warning forever when Amanda was 3 years old.
Yeah,
we literally never find out anything else about him ever.
One of the true villains of the Alien universe right here.
Yeah. Yep.
Fucking Alex. From there, we fast forward a couple of years and we meet Amanda's stepfather, another stand-up bloke named Paul Carter.
And unlike Alex, Paul becomes a major supporting character throughout the book. He's in this book a lot.
Some would say too much. I might say too much.
Some might, sure.
Yeah. I couldn't help but notice the last name, Paul Carter. I was like, is this why retroactively when Ripley meets Carter Burke in Aliens, she's immediately distrusting of him because of that name, right? Is that name just like triggering?
I mean, it very well could be. I did read a thing saying that like in a behind the scenes like look or whatever, that is where they got the name Carter from to make it Paul's last name.
Makes sense.
And so it would make sense. Yeah, sure.
They do a lot to kind of weave. I want to say this now, I guess. when I learned Alien Isolation was coming out and you'd be playing as Amanda Ripley, like we have some Amanda Ripley context from, say, the Aliens Special Edition film in particular, where it's a kind of a different kind of character than what we really get in this. So I was like, oh God, why is it got to be why do they have to have us playing as another Ripley? And I understand like the point of the story was to kind of tell a story that felt more in line with the original Alien, which obviously I really appreciate. I do think that overall, the way that they pull Amanda into the events of Isolation works pretty well for me. It didn't feel like just going to say it, like a Star Wars thing where all the stories have to be centered on these core, like, related groups of people. Like, it felt pretty natural. It felt like it made sense how they pulled her in. Just wanted to say that. What do you think about that, though?
I mean, I like the fact that Amanda is the main character of the story because, like, you know, she was only in the special edition version of Aliens.
Right.
And all we got was that, like, you know, by the time Ripley woke back up, she was already dead. And so, like, everyone just kind of assumed she, like, lived a normal life.
Sure.
And so with this game coming out, it's interesting to find out that Amanda isn't just Ellen's daughter, but is also basically Ellen again, which I find interesting because like, you know, she has this experience on the station, which is basically a parallel to what her mom had on the ship.
Right.
And then after this game, in I think it's some of the comics, she teams up with some colonial marines and goes and fights entire hordes of aliens, i.e. mirroring the events of the second movie as well.
Yeah. And that's the kind of stuff that sort of rubs me wrong personally a little bit. Like, but I think that they excuse it well enough. Like, I can buy it, but like typically it just feels a little bit forced sometimes in things when it's like, no, this is the relative of the character. I think they do it with like the Predator comics where like suddenly like Dutch's brother is involved, you know, and like shit like that is just kind of like, all right, but I don't know. This works for me for some reason.
I mean, it's like, the part of the reason it works for me is because it's one of those things where like, it's, how should I phrase this? I've been operating under the assumption for a while that we're never gonna see Ellen Ripley in a new Alien thing again.
Sure.
And so having this character that in a lot of ways is kind of a stand-in for Ellen Ripley, but is still different enough. It doesn't seem to be exactly a mirror image carbon copy.
No.
Like, the character is different enough for it to be their own character, but it's still close enough to Ellen that it's like, you know, has a similar vibe. You can see the link like structurally and thematically and so, like, since I'm confident we're never going to see Ellen Ripley again, having a proxy replacement that's like 70% the same thing, but different enough to give it that little twist is something I'm okay with, you know?
Sure. I think Amanda's pretty different from Ripley overall. I mean, they have some core similarities just in the genetic similarities that like define them as a person. But she's her own character, and I think that that's probably why it works for me, because it doesn't really feel like an Ellen Ripley proxy. You know, the confusing thing is that I just want to say Ripley to refer to Ellen Ripley, but I can't do that because we have Amanda Ripley, and then people are just calling her Ripley, and I'm like, oh my God. But that's my problem.
It definitely took a while to get used to, that's for sure.
But let's keep talking about Amanda's early life. What are the major things? The major things here are that Paul Carter, her stepfather, is a self-destructive alcoholic piece of shit who can't keep a job, right? Pretty standard kind of, I mean, it's like an archetypal, stereotypical background story, right?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, yeah.
And like they kind of imply that is what has forced Ellen to take like these long like deep space hauling missions and stuff like that.
Yeah, the implication is that she has to keep taking these like increasingly long or increasingly arduous jobs because they pay more.
Yeah.
And since Paul is the drunk who can't keep a job and keep spending all of their money, she has to like keep taking increasingly hazardous jobs just to keep paying their bills.
I think there was one particular fight where Ellen like got back from a job with enough money to pay off their debts just to find a mountain of new ones when she returned, you know?
Yeah, that's actually part of this right here, because like this flashback sequence, what it actually is a bunch of really small, like 1 and 2 paragraph flashbacks.
Yeah.
That are all like thrown at us multiple in a row in like one section of the book. And you know, like I said, Ellen marries Paul. He's a drunk, can't keep a job. And then the next one is Paul gets arrested, and then Ellen gets angry enough that she divorces him. And then we find out that every time Ellen goes out on a job, she has to go live with Paul at his place.
Yeah.
And despite him having his own place, he still is even more of a drunk and has an even harder time holding down a job.
Yeah.
And then one time, like this is the part you were mentioning, there's another one where she comes back and the two of them are in a fight because she's like, you know, the only money we even had was the rent money. And so I come back from this job and even that money is gone. Yeah. And so all this money that I just made has to go towards all of the debt you racked up since I left.
Meanwhile, Paul's like resentful of her. He's like, you're always out in space and I got to raise Amanda all on my own. And you get some growing sense of Amanda like developing some resentment towards Ellen as well, towards her mother, which is kind of heartbreaking.
And that theme of her resenting Ellen keeps coming back over and over and over again throughout the book.
And over and over.
Yeah.
And over
and over and over.
It is the number the number of times she was like just throughout the book like mad at her mom, and I just would be like, you at this point have a pretty good idea of what she went through, and you're still like, the ship went missing. She didn't ditch you. I understand that's not how abandonment issues work and develop. Like, people can develop abandonment issues by like losing a parent or losing somebody like to death, like unexpectedly. So I get, I'm not trying to be insensitive towards that, but the book just really, really, really hammers home how resentful Amanda has grown towards her mom.
And then after those brief snippet flashbacks, there's a little bit of stuff that happens in the present of the storyline. Sure. And then after that, we have our first like long, real extended flashback.
Okay, which one is this?
And this is the one where she is 9 years old. It's July of 2120.
Okay.
And this is the one where Ellen comes back from the job and is talking to Amanda and is like, okay, look, I'm about to take a job and I'm going to be gone for a really, really long time.
2 years.
This job is going to be on a ship called the Nostromo, and we're going to be gone for a while, but I promise I'm coming back. That's this flashback. Yeah.
She's like, I was invited to join Captain Dallas's crew. You remember Captain Dallas, right, Amanda? And Amanda does. This establishes like a relationship prior to this Nostromo mission between Ellen and Captain Dallas, and you know, in this month-long sort of layover, right before she sets out on this mission, where Ellen and Amanda are spending a lot of time, Captain Dallas is kind of hanging out with them a lot of this time as well. Is this implying, like, I feel like I have heard somewhere, I don't think I really pick up on it in the movie, but I remember there being some kind of maybe flirtation between Dallas and Ellen.
Well, in the, not necessarily the original script, because we saw a version of the original script, but in an earlier version of the script, there was a minor subplot where we find out that every crew member has gone to bed with every other crew member on the ship.
Why wouldn't you, honestly?
And so it's one of those things. Well, and that even comes up here because the three of them, as in Paul, Ellen, and Amanda, go to where the Nostromo is docked, and like Dallas is there and like meeting him and everything. And Dallas is like, "Oh, hi, Amanda, how's it going?" Hanging out with her. And then Dallas is like, "All right, Ellen, see you on the ship," and then walks away. And then Paul turns towards Ellen and immediately goes, "You're fucking him, aren't you?"
And she's just like, "Oh."
But actually, thinking about it now, there is some stuff a little bit before this that I forgot to mention.
Sure.
Basically, the flashback actually starts with Amanda in her room, curled up in the corner, crying because Paul and Ellen are arguing in the other room.
Yeah.
And we get the introduction of a very minor subplot that only comes through the flashbacks here. She has a little stuffed tiger named Daniel.
She has a Daniel striped tiger, right?
That is correct. Yes, she certainly does. Yes. Yeah. And over the course of the flashbacks, it becomes the only thing in Paul's apartment that she cares about or has a positive opinion of.
Yeah.
So she's standing there or sitting there listening to them arguing and crying with Daniel, and then the door opens and she immediately flinches in fear because she thinks it's Paul.
I know, man.
But yeah, tell me about it. But turns out it's Ellen, and so the two of them are talking and laughing and celebrating, and then Ellen's like, I gotta go on this trip, but I'm not even leaving for a month, and then after I leave, it's not even going to be for another month or two after that, after I'm on the ship, until I go into cryo. And so sleepy buys, as she calls it. Yes. And so during that intervening month between then and when she has to actually go on the ship, they're basically just living it up, going and seeing vids, going and eating real food in restaurants, going to fairs, going on rides. Yeah, they're having a great time. And then at the end
out with Captain Dallas.
Well, among other people, yes. And then at the end of that month is when they go to the actual dock for Ellen to get on the ship. And that's when that scene when Paul's like, "Are you fucking Dallas?" That's when this happens.
Right. But so what I'm getting at is she was fucking Dallas, right?
Yeah, probably.
Maybe it was maybe there's something in the deleted scenes or in the director's cut of Alien that makes the sort of flirtation that much more obvious. I'm not sure, but I have remembered this movie. I have remembered Alien, sorry, of Dallas and Ripley have a thing. To the point where in Prometheus when Yannick and Charlize Theron go and fuck, I was like, oh, this is clearly a reference to the Dallas and Ripley thing. This book I think hammers home the point that there was some fraternizing going on between Ellen and Dallas, and honestly, I'm here for it.
The thing of it is as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to say as far as I'm concerned, but let's be real. Paul doesn't even have any reason to be mad about it because him and Ellen are already divorced by this point.
Sure.
So what's it to him? It's none of his fucking business at all.
No, it's not. He's got no dog in this fight, but he's bitter and he's surely jealous and I'm sure he was enjoying spending Ellen's money. Right?
Yeah, he certainly was.
Now he's got to find his own money to spend. Can't keep a job, can't get job interviews, nothing. And now he's stuck taking care of Ellen's daughter. And you can see Paul is such a piece of shit. You can really see why Amanda developed such a heavy abandonment complex, right?
For sure.
Since she was a child, she got left in the care of this real piece of shit dude. Her mom scores a big contract. It's a long haul, so she's already fuck, 2 years. That is the longest you've been away, Mom, and I'm going to be stuck with this just monster of a human being for 2 years. But you've promised me that when you come back, everything is going to be different. I'm going to get a big old birthday present for my 11th birthday. We're going to have enough money to change our situation. You won't have to take long hauls anymore, and life's just going to get better. And then Mom doesn't come back,
Yeah.
Fucking heartbreaking, dude.
Yeah, and it especially sucks because, at the end of this flashback, Amanda is in her room, doing homework or whatever it is she's doing. I don't remember. And there's a knock at the door, and it is a company employee informing Paul that they have lost contact with the Nostromo.
Yeah.
And his, ex-wife or whoever, like, yeah, ex-wife, because they're divorced by at this point, I'm pretty sure. His ex-wife is presumed lost, and his response is he pauses for a couple of seconds and basically goes, "Why should I give a fuck? The bitch was never even around."
I know, dude. It's horrible.
I saw that and I was like, the fuck, man? What the fuck is wrong with you?
I mean, Paul's a tragic figure also. Clearly, he needs help that he's not getting.
Yeah.
He's a vile piece of shit. But like that just seems so cold-blooded and cold-hearted, you know.
It sure is. It sure is, especially because he would know that Amanda is right the hell there.
Right there. Yeah. I don't know, man. It's rough. But Amanda's life keeps going on. She gets into like a trade school, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess first of all, she gets some like financial compensation and some financial assistance from Weyland-Yutani, because in this book, in this series of events, the Nostromo, like the Nostromo going missing is public knowledge, and like Weyland-Yutani is like offering reward money and searching for the ship pretty much immediately after losing contact with it. So like this isn't like secret espionage, hidden stuff. I think it might be in the Isolation game where you read some of those like terminal messages where it does sound like they're keeping a lid on the Nostromo situation. But
they kind of imply that, but never outright say it or anything. So yeah.
But this book makes it pretty obvious that like, no, this is well-known stuff. We need this information. We need this black box back, etc. It's proprietary. We know the reason why they want it.
Yeah.
But they're just out there being like, we got reward money for anyone who finds info on the Nostromo. So because of that, the world knows about Amanda Ripley and losing her mother. So Weyland-Yutani does try to help her out as she's growing up.
And a big part of her character arc is that Weyland-Yutani keeps attempting to help her out, and she keeps on categorically refusing them every single time.
Oh yeah, every time, right?
But yeah, like basically the next flashback is she's 16.
Yes.
It's April of 2127, and she is a high school student at an engineering technical academy of sorts.
She has a proficiency. This is, I think, something that sets her apart from Ellen. We don't really see this technical proficiency for Ellen. Like, I know in the movie, Ellen goes down with Parker and Brett to try to check out the situation with the engines, but she doesn't really do anything, you know?
She certainly doesn't.
But Amanda is just an engineering prodigy.
The flashback actually starts with her in the principal's office at the school, and the principal is giving her a talking to for being too good at her assignments.
Pretty much, yeah, too good.
And long story short, they want to kick her out of the school because they think she's too good and too smart and too talented to go to this school. And so she's like, you belong somewhere else. You need to go to a better school. And she's like, I don't know how you think I can do that. We can barely even afford to send me here. Right. I don't have the money to go to a more elite school, or I already would be.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, man.
And a big part of the reason why that's a problem is because Paul has continued to stay winning and has hurt his back at work real bad. Sure. And so he literally can't work anymore.
Hurt his back by being drunk on the job.
Well, we don't know that yet. Yeah, we haven't figured that out yet, but eventually, yes, it turns out to be his fault because he was drunk on the job, yes.
Sure, I mean, I just assumed, like, when I read it, and I was like, oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Basically, the gist of this flashback, and to be honest, most of the flashbacks in this book, especially the ones when she's younger in like the first half or the first like 2/3 of the book, are about like detailing various times in her past that she's like gotten fleeced or conned when trying to get information about her mother.
Right.
And
the first one was when she was a teenager, it was around this time, right?
This is the first one. She gets kicked out of school, and then basically like the teacher is about to fail her, and so she like does the assignment as she was assigned, like right then and there, so that she doesn't fail.
I want to talk about this experiment because like like groups or each person in the class was given an engine with a different problem, and the assignment was to come up with a repair schedule for the engine or the motor or whatever item it was, right?
Yep, that is correct.
So instead of doing the assignment...
It was a generator, by the way. It was a generator.
Okay, so instead of doing the assignment and writing up the repair schedule for her generator, Amanda just fixed all of the generators.
Yeah, like everyone in the class, and like the teacher and the principal are both like, she's too good to go here, but here's the thing, she didn't do the assignment,
right?
So I have to fail her unless she does it right now. And so while she's sitting there in the principal's office, she just right there in like 45 seconds just types it up and sends it to
just
them.
Whips
and
up
they're like
for her, she remembers which engine was hers specifically, and writes up the repair schedule for it.
Yep,
because she's a fucking genius, you know. I really liked that scene, honestly. That was cool. I was like, hell yeah.
She even has an offhand comment about how she's like, oh, and by the way, just so you know, my engine had way more problems with it than everyone else's did. And the principal's like, yeah, I'm not the only member of the staff that thinks you don't belong here. Right. And she's just like, oh.
It sucks because like she's so fucking good, but it's just like the bureaucracy and like financial stuff that's holding her back.
Yeah,
you hate to see
it. And then after that, this is when the first con happens.
Sure.
She goes to a coffee shop and runs into a friend of hers named Marvin
Okeke,
who's always kind of just like posted up and chilling at the coffee shop.
Yeah.
And the two of them just get into a casual conversation, and then he just very casually and like offhandedly reveals that he's like a data broker, and she fucking flips out and gets like extremely mad about it for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know why.
But this is relevant because he straight up tells her that he's like, you know, I know a guy who like got some information from the Nostromo flight log, and if you're willing to pay for it, we'll give you the info. And she's like, oh yeah, no problem.
Sure.
And
don't they promise her like as a show of good faith, they show her like another flight log from one of Ellen's other ships, you know?
And I'm not sure because I forgot to write it down when I was at this point in the notes, and then only went back after the fact and added it here. But is this the part where we find out that Ellen put down like a terrorist uprising at OTS or whatever? Is this when we find out that happened?
I don't know if that's this one or the second one. Are you talking? Oh, wait, this is the terrorist, not the because there was two instances that they talked about Ellen Ripley having.
Yeah, there was a terrorist uprising, and there was a attempted mutiny.
Right. This was I think this was the terrorist uprising, which is kind of glossed over from my memory, where it just says that she stopped a terrorist uprising from some Earth. She doesn't call them Earth Savers, but something very similar to Earth Savers, and that set off bells in my head, like, oh shit, are the Earth Savers still at it? Because like they just toss it off as like some, you know, Earth huggers or Earth lovers or something like that, right?
Yeah, but like I'll say, like when I was at this part of the story and taking my notes, that section about her, like, you know, quelling the or stopping the terrorist uprising was like minor and glossed over enough in the book that I literally didn't even put it in my notes until after the fact.
I'm pretty sure it's here.
So that leads me to believe we're not given very much information about it. We're just told that it happened and that's it.
Yeah. So I just want to sit on that first. I just focus on that for a second, because they do say that it was some Earth terrorists, like Earth loving terrorists who take over a shuttle. Mm-hmm. I was like, you know, the Earth Savers took over a shuttle to try to crash into the Covenant. Like you think, like I am sincerely interested in if it is in fact more Earth Saver shit going on. right?
Well, I can tell you right now, if it is, they never call them Earth Savers,
Right.
because if it had said Earth Savers in the book, I would have written that down in my notes.
Yeah, they don't say it, but it's just so similar. I'm like, it's not the same event, but I'm betting it's the very same organization. They're still at it on Earth at that time, trying to save it, I guess.
Yeah, very well could be.
Yeah.
But
Duncan Fields, right? That was the guy.
Yeah, that was it.
Sorry.
That was his name. Yeah,
I'm
you're good.
All right. I'm obsessed, man. Everything has to tie back in.
I can tell.
Everything has to tie back into the Alien Covenant Origins novel. That shit's canon. The Juto Combine's in the new book. All right. Everything goes back to Alan Dean Foster's Alien Covenant Origins novel.
That is correct. It is the linchpin for the franchise.
Most important text in all of Alien canon. All right. I'm over it.
All right, cool. But yeah, basically, as you said, is like a show of good faith. They give her this info from this other flight log.
Yeah.
And then she sees that info and basically goes, you know what? This is worth it, but she doesn't have any money to pay for the info. So she steals money from Paul to be able to pay for it. And then comes back the next day to get the info from Marvin, and he doesn't show up, and then she runs into a classmate, and the classmate's like, yeah, I saw him like an hour ago getting on a bullet train to go to like LA or whatever. Jesus. He's gone. And she's like, son of a bitch. Because that's another thing I forgot to mention. All the flashback stuff. They live either in or just outside of Vancouver.
Right. That was another thing I learned, that Ellen Ripley is Canadian.
Yep.
Pretty cool, honestly.
Yeah.
She feels Canadian if I think about it.
But yeah, basically Marvin conned the money from her and fled. And then after she's real pissed off from that, she goes back home because she's just so mad that she doesn't think she can go to school right now. Yeah. And then when her head clears and she's like, maybe I actually should go to school. Paul's like, you're not going to school. You have to come with me to the hearing so I can finally get money like workman's comp for my back issue.
Get my settlement.
And then this is when they go into the settlement. That's the word I was looking for. And this is when they go into the hearing, and the lawyer or whoever is like, we did some research and we did some interviews, and we're like 90% sure that you were extremely drunk on the job. Right. So because it was your fault, you are not getting any money.
I think the technicality is that they somehow tested his blood, and he had a high blood alcohol level. Now he claimed he hadn't had anything to drink that day, which was technically true. He was just still drunk from the day before.
Yeah, because he was still drunk from the night before. Yeah, that's correct.
Absolutely.
Then the next flashback, and by the way, just for the listeners, when we're going through the story events of like the game proper in the then present, we'll be pointing out the spots in that story when the flashbacks are given to us. Even if Neal doesn't, I will be.
Yeah, I'm not going to be doing that. You can do that.
Yeah. Well, I still want them to get like an idea for how the story is structured,
Sure. I think it's structured very I do want to say, I do think it's structured very well. Like, we're dividing this up for a purpose, just to organize the episode in the way we talk about it. But I do think that the flashbacks are seamlessly integrated into the novel and the events at appropriate times where you can follow everything. Again, I really dug this book.
Yeah, I really liked it a lot. The next flashback is takes place in June of 2129. Okay. And it is the day before her 18th birthday.
Right. Yeah, man. This is when she's like free, right? She found a place to live. It's a sublet. It's only for a couple months. I know we'll get into all of it, but I'm just setting up.
Yeah. She has managed to find a place to rent. She hasn't moved out yet, but she has the place on lock. Yes.
Yeah. And she's going to finally get away from Paul, right? She's 18. She won't have to live there with him anymore.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
And so the day before her birthday, she had saved up some money to take a train down to Seattle to meet someone at a restaurant. This guy's name is Stefano Vanini.
Vanini, an Italian gent.
And apparently Amanda wants to meet him because he ran into her and like spent some time with her, just like, you know, at like a bar or wherever, you know, at the docks, whatever it was. He like happened to run into her at the uh final stop they made before actually heading out to grab the ore.
This is
You know?
met up with Ellen Ripley, met up with Amanda's
Yeah.
mother. Right.
Yes, I should have specified. There are
Yeah.
two major female characters in this novel, and both of them have the last name Ripley, so I do
Sure.
need to be more precise. Yes.
Yeah. So this guy this was like the end of the journey, you know, past Neptune of the Nostromo, when they got to wherever they were going. I don't know the name.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
He was there, and yeah, Amanda wants to ask him questions about that.
Just, you know, what she was like, what she did she say or do anything interesting or noteworthy or whatever?
Was there anything weird about the ship? And the guy's just like, no, I mean, loading the ore went like as standard, no complications, no weirdness. And she was he says something interesting. I don't know that I felt this from, like, I kind of felt a little strange to me, where he says, like, compared to everyone else on the Nostromo crew, he's used to space truckers being kind of weird, but he points out how adult Ellen was the only adult among the crew, is what he says.
Yeah, what he's basically, I think the quote is something to the effect of, your mother was the only one that wasn't a child, an idiot, or both. And I was like, I don't know. I mean, all of them seemed kind of put together based on the events of the movie.
Yeah, I know Kane's the idiot who stuck his face in an alien egg, but like up till that point, he seemed pretty by the book and like took his job seriously. And then Captain Dallas, of course, he seemed like he knew what was going on the whole time. So,
which leads me to believe, I always kind of just chalked that up to Stefano was saying that to Amanda to make her feel better about it, you know?
Sure. Oh, I kind of wonder.
That's kind of how I always read it.
Maybe Captain Dallas, because we know he's got a little fun streak. Like, there were those moments where he was talking to young Amanda and like pretending her name was Armadillo or Aardvark, and then she would do the kid thing of like, my name's Amanda, you dumb piece of shit. Yeah. She didn't say that, but
no, that's exactly what she said.
You dumb motherfucker, Captain Dallas. My name's Amanda. Not,
and then they're both just like, ho 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 ho.
But like, maybe he was just kind of like fun loving and goofing off, and like the version of him that we see is when there's some serious shit going on in the ship. So maybe we just see him like snapped into work mode, you know?
Yeah.
So maybe he didn't really seem particularly adult to this Italian man when he met him in the far reaches of space. So
yeah, who fucking knows?
But it was a nice scene, and like I like the echoes of him talking about how adult Ellen seemed, like as we're on the eve of, or like we're like at the moment of Amanda turning 18 and realizing that it's time, like she's been trying to be an adult for so long, it's time to actually be one, you know? It was a nice scene. I liked that.
Yeah, I also liked how like this scene, I don't want to, like this flashback, I don't want to say it felt kind of unnecessary, because the second half of it is relevant to the flashback stuff, but like this whole scene of her like meeting with Stefano and everything, like I don't really like see really what the purpose is here, because like what information could she have gotten from him?
I think that because we had also heard that like on her 12th birthday she erased all of the vids her mom had sent her from the Nostromo, like, you know, before they went into sleepy buys, right? So like it felt to me like a moment of Amanda like wanting to find out more about her mom, like getting over the fact that her mom went missing and being not over it, but like less angry about being stuck with Paul, and just like starting her search for answers about what happened and the person that her mother was, because it had been so long she didn't remember her. Like,
fair enough.
I think that that's what the purpose was, and the fact that it's set against her also, you know, becoming an adult and getting out on her own finally was, I mean, thematically connected, obviously, but I think the reason maybe it doesn't feel like character growth the way that it should is because we continue to see older Amanda being resentful of her mom, even as she is getting the information about what happened. She is still like pissed off that her mom wasn't home for her 11th birthday.
That's fair. You've got me there. That's a good point.
Yeah, it kind of backpedals. That's the word I was looking for. Just it feels like they kind of backpedal on this moment with other stuff, and maybe it's just a stress response that Amanda's going through. I don't know, man.
But yeah, she's there at the restaurant with Stefano, and Stefano says, I don't want to say it's a great line, but it is one that stuck into my head, because like when Amanda's like, anything, do you have anything at all, even the slightest bit? And he's like, she was just one of the cargo crew, Yeah. I wouldn't even remember that I met her if that ship hadn't gone missing later.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And I was like, hey, fair enough,
Yeah, the truth hurts sometimes.
And so with that defeated, she gets back on the train and heads back home. And then something else happens when she gets back home.
Yeah.
She arrives at her apartment and cannot access the floor of the apartment building she lives on because there is an active crime scene.
Yes, there fucking is. Yeah.
And turns out that, that active crime scene, Neal, what is it that happened?
Paul got arrested for punching some Canadian mounted police in a bar.
That is... And so that active crime scene turns out to be their own apartment. But and she's of course extremely pissed because like you said earlier, by this point she already had like the sublet apartment and everything.
Right.
So the only reason she was coming back here was to like get some clothes and like her toothbrush or whatever, and then she was going to be gone forever. But she can't get in at all.
Right.
So she basically just says, well, I have somewhere else to sleep. So she turns around and leaves without getting anything from her apartment, which means she never goes back to it, which I find extremely distressing and unfortunate, because that means she never sees Daniel again.
Daniel Striped Tiger.
Yeah.
Never again. Well, she has a whole thing about like that tiger represented her childhood, and this is her, like, I can't get to it. Fine. I have to be okay with that. I have to move on with my life.
Yep.
Like, but now fucking Daniel Striped Tiger stuck with Paul because Paul's going to get out of jail at some point, and he's just going to like, the cycle's just going to repeat. He's going to be like, Amanda, why did you abandon me? And
well, and that's exactly it. Like,
company operatives are going to come to Paul's apartment and talk to the stuffed tiger and say, listen, we lost contact with Sebastopol Station. Do you want to go out in space and search for Amanda? And then we're going to have this stuffed tiger on this mission with a bunch of Weyland-Yutani execs. And that's a book I want to read, honestly. That's a story I'd like to see.
See, you're cracking a joke about like, Paul getting out of prison and being like, Amanda, where are you? You've abandoned me. But like
not Paul,
later
the
on,
tiger, specifically the tiger.
Well, okay, fair enough. I guess I misheard you. But like the reason I'm bringing this up is because later on in the book, they straight up say that she has not been in contact with Paul since this happened. Yeah. She never went back to the apartment, has never talked to him. Earlier on in the story, she's like checking her like, messages, and 2 of them are from Paul, and she deletes them without even reading them. Like she has cut off all contact with him, even though he is trying to contact her.
He's just trying to get her tiger back,
Yeah, let's hope, because she deserves to have it back.
Cut toxic people out of your life. You got to do it. You just got to do it.
That's right.
So from here, she just starts. This is when she like starts working on Luna. Is that correct?
That is correct. I think this does take place on Luna. I think so. Yes, it does. It certainly does. Yeah.
Right. We're kind of getting, as far as I remember, to the end of like the flashback stuff. At least there's the important meaty stuff, right?
We got this one and then one more major one after this, and I think that's about it.
Okay, so are we now at the point where she's on Luna and she's working for Flora Mendez, or is that does that come after the?
That is this one.
That
yes.
Is this one. Yeah. So Amanda heads off to Luna. Now, is that the moon? I should look this up.
I mean, I have no reason to believe that it's not.
Okay, hold on. I got the. Yeah, it's just the Earth moon. She's just stationed on the Earth moon. working for a woman named Flora Mendez. And
it is May 2132, just a few weeks before her 21st birthday.
And Amanda's like a baller ass repair technician, but she can't be considered an engineer. So she's not getting like a lot of good pay, you know?
Yeah, because since she dropped out of technical school and never got her certificate, she legally cannot actually have like engineer jobs.
Right.
Like the most she can do is like a technician's assistant or whatever it is they call it. Yeah.
Yeah. So she what would you say? She's taking repair jobs for this lady. She gets into one like repair job or she keeps asking for like to be bumped up in pay and be considered an engineer, and Flora is like, no, I can't do it. You're not certified, etc. You know,
Yeah.
it has to be certified mechanics, whatever. Does she gets sent on a repair job, and like she's sent as a assistant, but the engineer doesn't show up, so she just completes the job on her own. And
that does happen. Yes, there is a brief part before that where we're told like
digging into her
Mendez
file.
Yep, Mendez says that she was considering promoting her because she keeps on causing problems with the actual engineers she's assisting.
Right.
And so Mendez is correct. And so Mendez considers promoting her just to reduce incidents around the shop, but then does a background check and all the shit with Paul and all the stuff that like, because it's implied over the course of the story that she has at least briefly run away a couple of different times.
Right.
And so like that and the stuff with Paul comes up, and then finds out that like she hasn't actually finished technical school. And so Mendez is like, I was going to promote you, but legally I can't. So I'm not going to. Sorry.
Sure.
And then it cuts to like a month later, and that's when her partner suddenly doesn't come into work one day.
Right. So Amanda has taken this job, like done this job, and done a really good job. Right. She did it on her own, even though she wasn't supposed to. And Flora's like, well, it's okay. That I know that customer's going to keep hush hush. They just want the stuff fixed. So like, here's a deal for you. Like, I am going to pay you an engineer's salary. But I also wanted to talk to you about this other thing. I got a friend who just happens to have a copy of the Nostromo's flight recorder, and I know from looking in your file that you've been digging up information on your mom and on the Nostromo. So, like, you know, it's got a hefty price tag, but we could, like, arrange something where I can take it out of your pay, and you can... once it's paid off, I can give you the Nostromo's flight log. And as a show of faith, I've got this other one from when your mom was aboard the ship called the Sotia, I believe.
It's an O, Sotio.
Sotio? Yeah. Okay. Aboard the Sotio. And you can have that as like a show of faith, right?
Mm-hmm, yep.
So Amanda like agrees to this deal, and she like checks out this flight log, and we get the story of much like it was. I'm going to be real. I did not like this. I did not like the implications of this, because this is the one where we learn that Ellen helped stop a mutiny from the engineers, the engine, like the Parker and Brett on this ship, the Sotio.
That is correct.
Right.
Yep.
And it alludes to like some messages that Ripley sent Amanda before they went into hypersleep on the Nostromo, where she was like, I'm not sure about these Parker and Brett guys. I feel like it's going to be a repeat of what happened on the Sotio. I don't remember the mutineers' names on that ship.
It was Kakanahui and Go, or KK and Go, as they were typically referred to as.
Yeah, so she like some line about Ellen saying this is KK and Go all over again, referring to Brett and Parker. I don't think that what KK and Go did is what Brett and Parker would have done. Brett and Parker were not like going to hold the ship hostage. I don't get that from them.
Like, they certainly weren't, but the reason why, like, in the narrative, the reason why she says that is because this attempted mutiny started with the engineer and the assistant engineer complaining they weren't getting paid enough.
The Parker and Brett. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just I didn't like that comparison, because I love Brett and Parker, man. Parker's I love Parker. Parker was like Yaphet Kotto, so good in Alien.
Yeah, he rules.
I hate they just seemed kind of mischievous and sort of like I don't want to do my work kind of guys, like not
like you just said, they just seemed like they were mischievous and lazy, not like they were mutineers,
not lazy, like specifically lazy because they didn't feel like they were getting paid enough, right? So like they're only going to give us half a share, or we're going to do half a share's worth of work, like that specifically. Like they are pro labor, they are on our side of things, like so I didn't like this comparison, but it's minor detail. It just rubbed me the wrong way here in the book.
It's fine.
So
it's fine.
So this mutiny attempt on the Sotillo that Ellen stopped, like this flight recorder, it's got like testimonial from her, it's got video footage like from the security cameras and stuff. So what was the plan here? These engineers, they locked themselves in a room, like in the armory or something, right? Or in a room with the weapons in it.
Well, before that, they had confronted the captain about getting more pay, and it like almost turned into a physical altercation, and then Ripley showed up, and it simmered down and they left. And then the next day they got into an actual physical fight with the captain over it. And then when like somebody was like holding them, and then they broke the hold and ran off into the armory and locked themselves in.
Right. And so they like changed security codes for something.
For the door so that nobody else could get in.
Right. So what was their plan? Just to like be locked in here with the guns until they got their pay?
No, their plan was basically what they did was that they didn't specify precisely what, but they said that they did something to the engines that will make them explode in like an hour. And so if they don't, like, they're not going to come out from the armory until the captain agrees to pay them more. But if the agreement isn't reached within an hour, the engine's going to blow up and they're all going to die, I guess.
Yeah, man, that's a pretty serious threat. So Ellen's solution to this, because she's a goddamn genius, right?
Correct.
Is essentially, they're going to distract the engineers by trying to hack the door, right? Ellen's going to spacewalk outside the ship, obviously, drill through the wall of the ship,
like through the hole right where the armory is, just on the outside,
where they won't hear her because in space no one can hear you drill, and suck and drill a hole through it to suck the atmosphere out of that room. And this plan shouldn't work because of like fail-safe systems with like door locks and stuff like that. But it just happens to be one of the many things on the engineering list that these guys haven't gotten around to fixing.
That they didn't fucking do.
So it's like a classic hoisted by your own petard situation, right?
Yep.
Yeah, man.
So, specifically, she's going to drill through the hull with a little teeny tiny drill that won't make it like blow out. The air will just leak out. And then after enough atmosphere had leaked out, they'll get dizzy and lightheaded and pass out. And then while they're passed out, they can go in there and take them to the infirmary and put them in the brig and arrest them and all that. That's why she's doing this.
They can finally like crack, because they've been cracking the door code, but they keep changing it every time it gets cracked, so they can't actually get in the door. But if they're unconscious, they'll be able to crack the door code and get them out.
Correct.
Pretty fucking awesome. And I love that as a part of Ripley's story, because like it shows, she's pretty ingenuitous. Is that the right word? Is that you're a writer? Is that ingenuitous?
I don't think that's a word.
She's got a lot of ingenuity. How about that?
She certainly is.
I don't know. I just like this. This felt like a cool Ripley thing. I love the idea of her doing a space. Like this was a nice. We didn't get the story of her like stopping the terrorists who like took over a shuttle. Yeah. I don't think this is clearly a separate event, right? Like I'm not confusing the two.
I'm sure this is a separate event. Yes.
Yeah. But I love that she's like done these things. She's just got this history of like taking out space dorks, right? Like,
it's great because she is extremely competent. As you may imagine, she's the one that came up with the plan, and because it was Ellen's plan, it worked perfectly and went off without a hitch.
Right. So this like and it's totally feels like some Ripley shit. Like it does.
Mm-hmm.
She's just pragmatic in a way that other people don't seem to be when she's in these. I mean, we're going to touch on this later in the actual book, but like the sort of one of the many like big bads in this. Like there's a guy who's like in the story that is clearly Ripley like in his desperation to eradicate the Xenomorph, but there is just a difference in his plan versus the way she would handle the situation, you know?
Yeah, she's like, you know, what's the perfect, precise, like needle point surgical way I could cut this knot? Whereas the guy you're referring to is like, oh man, this one person needs to get killed. I'm going to blow up the whole hospital metaphorically, you know?
Sure. We'll get into that in the second half of this.
We will.
But it's like the thing I think keep going back to is in Aliens. I know we haven't covered it yet, but when all the Marines are standing around like dicks in their hands trying to figure out what the fuck to do, pardon my language, she's just like, we're going to take off and we're going to nuke the planet. We're going to take off and we're going to nuke the planet. And I don't care how much it fucking costs. Weyland-Yutani can bill me. We're going to take off and nuke the planet, right? Like it's the only way to be sure. That's a thing I keep bringing up in my D&D campaign. I keep trying to suggest that we take off and nuke the entire site from orbit. It's the
and no one goes for it.
Nobody ever even laughs at it or acts like they have any fucking idea what I'm talking about.
Ah, well, what are you going to do? You know?
I did it the other night. I did it on Monday, and no one said anything, and I was like, still not funny? Okay. And then I just kind of moved on. It's funny to me, though.
Well, like I said, you know, she's going through Amanda, is going through all these, you know, testimonials from what happened on the Sotio, and seeing that makes her decide that she does want to go along with the plan, and so she goes to her boss and accepts the promotion, but doesn't get the pay raise because that extra money is going towards this. And it was going to take a few months, but since she got this promotion, it's only going to take 1 month.
Right.
And then it cuts to 1 month later, and Neal, what happens?
She goes into her boss's office. She goes into Flora Mendez's office, and she's like, well, I got that job done. It's been a month. I have paid off the Nostromo, the illegal flight recorder data for the Nostromo. So can you hook me up with that? And Flora Mendez is like, great. Yep, you're all settled. I'll bring it in tomorrow. It is at my house. And then Amanda's like,
you get all that?
So it is at your house. You hear that, everybody? And like the fucking feds, the feds come in. Like the feds attack the place. They like bust into the office, and Flora's like, what is going on? It was like fucking Mar-a-Lago in there, right?
That's correct.
And Amanda's like, yeah, I know you're full of shit.
Yeah, she straight up says that like the moment she got that Sotio flight recorder, she knew that Mendez was lying about the whole thing.
She knew it because you can access flight recorder, like you can legally, it's like Freedom of Information Act or some shit. Like you can just get those things.
Yeah, the flight recorder info is public record, is how she phrases it.
Public record. So you were scamming me for cheap labor. She takes the lady down, and it's like, because the lady was using her desperation for information about her mother and the Nostromo, like to exploit her labor, right? So the feds are like, we're gonna look into your financials, and we've already looked into your financials. Like, you're up to some shit here, Flora Mendez. You're under arrest. You're shut the fuck down.
Well, you also forgot one important thing that she was charged with, and it was, I think, ultimately the reason why Amanda decided to go to the feds about this, is she was specifically getting arrested for fraud, because that flight recorder data is public information, but it was on a disk that is illegal to copy unless you are the original owner of the disk.
Classic piracy, and so that's shit.
And so that is why Amanda was like, you say it's at your house. Are you sure? And then Mendez is like, yep, I'm sure. That's the reason why that's like pointed out in the book, because it turns out it's illegal to like copy those discs, and like the only way she could have been able to get that disc is to illegally copy it. And so she's like, aha.
Flora Mendez got arrested for pirating copies of Sega Dreamcast games.
That is correct. Yes, you are. That is
She's
effectively
like, hey,
correct.
Amanda, do you want the fully playable, completed but never released Plane Crazy or Half-Life for the Sega Dreamcast? I got you covered. They're on CDRs at my house.
But this turns out to kind of be a problem for Amanda because A, she doesn't have a job anymore, and two, she has to find somewhere that is willing to hire someone who ratted her boss out to the feds.
Yeah.
She does eventually end up finding a job, but
where does she end up?
She ends up, the final major flashback is in October of 2137, which is only about 2 months before the present of the story.
Right.
And she is working at another place on Luna under, I don't know if I actually wrote down, Dimitri. That's the guy's name. She just found a job working somewhere else. And earlier on in the story, this is actually something I'd like to mention very briefly. Earlier on in the story, they mentioned the character of Zula Hendrix.
Sure. Zula Hendrix, a big name in the extended Alien universe.
Yeah, she's pretty important. She showed up for the first time in the 2016 comic Aliens Defiance, I believe.
Yeah, which I think and also featured Amanda Ripley in it.
I believe I'm not 100% sure whether she's in it or not because I haven't read it, but I know there are comics where Zula and Amanda are running around goofing off together.
I have issues 10 and 12 literally sitting in front of me right now, so let me see if Amanda's in either of those.
But the reason this is significant is because, like I said earlier, like we said, all these flashback stuff is all stuff that was newly added to the novelization and wasn't in the game. Zula first showed up in a comic book from 2016, but this game came out in 2014, so it was made before Zula as a character ever even existed. And then when they made the novelization, which came out in 2019, they retcon added her into this story.
Yeah.
And she was briefly mentioned earlier, and a couple of times throughout the novel, Amanda will just offhandedly like mention, like while thinking to herself or talking out loud or whatever, will mention like, you know, wish Zula was here, or this reminds me when me and Zula did something. But like this scene, this final major flashback is the first time that Zula makes like a meaningful appearance at all in the story.
Yes, that is true. Zula also, she was one of the main characters in Alien Prototype, which is kind of the sequel novel to Isolation. She's in the new one, Inferno's Fall. Yeah, she's in Aliens Defiance and Aliens Resistance and Rescue. I believe those are all comic books.
Amanda, I'm pretty sure they are,
Amanda is in Aliens Resistance and Defiance and
got it. Okay. Because I believe isn't Resistance like a one-shot spin-off of Defiance or something like that?
I think so. And then Amanda's also in a dream sequence in Alien Prototype. I believe a dream sequence that Zula Hendrix is having.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I'm not super like, this is the thing about this show. Like I'm not super I kind of know some of the early days of the Dark Horse books and not that well. The later years, I don't know. Like I'm going to be discovering that stuff as we cover it on the show.
Yeah, like straight up, this novel like is the only like part of the Alien franchise that has Zula in it that I have read yet. Right. So
I'm looking forward. There is definitely a Zula Hendrix month in our future. Maybe.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm looking forward to that because I actually think she's a pretty neat character. I actually like her a lot.
She's cool. I've listened to some of Prototype. I started it, but I put it on pause when we started to do the show so I could do it in order.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, no, Zula Hendrix is a cool character, and I'm really looking forward to this Inferno's Fall.
Yeah, me too. That looks really cool.
We might need to just get to some of that stuff sooner rather than later because this, like, we're kind of looking at doing that stuff in a year, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, I mean, that's fine. But yeah, anyway.
You know, like we're doing this 3 years after it came out, so.
That's true. But yeah, like I said, this is about 2 months before the Sevastopol parts of the storyline. Right. And this is when Zula finally makes her first on-screen appearance in the book, which, by the way, is about 85% of the way through the book.
Sure. She got name dropped at the start, but that was it.
And basically her, like, for the purposes of this specific flashback, Zula's deal is that she is a private first class in the Colonial Marines, and she got injured during some mission, and she was sent to a military hospital on Luna to like convalesce and go through physical therapy. And so Amanda and Zula happened to meet one time and became friends. And so when Zula isn't doing physical therapy, she is out, like when Amanda goes out to do jobs to repair like a land speeder or a generator or whatever, Zula comes with her and shadows her to like learn the gist of how to do it. And in return, Zula teaches Amanda self-defense and how to use guns, which is extremely lucky considering what happens to her 2 months from now.
Yeah, man.
And so the two of them, they're out just like Amanda's just like fixing something, fixing like a, you know, generator or an engine or whatever, and quizzing Zula like what the problem is and how to fix it and all these other things. And then they get
saying, man, women be fixing.
That's right. And Amanda gets a message from her boss, Dimitri, as I mentioned, about how this other engineer named Brodsky needs some help. He's tell me about it. He's working on an airlock that has broken and stuck 5 people inside of it. Dimitri even goes out of his way to say they're not in any danger. They're totally safe. They're just stuck in there. And Brodsky can't do it by himself, because he can't be in 2 places at once, you know? Yeah. And then also at around this point, we also find out that the arrangement that Zula and Amanda have, Dimitri does not know about it.
Right.
But anyway, there's 2 female characters here. Amanda goes to the airlock and Zula comes with her, which is going to be extremely important later.
Yeah, it is.
And basically, there's some kind of, like, you know, the issue is that they don't know like why one of the airlock doors isn't open. Well, I think they say the problem is that the inner airlock isn't opening because even though the outer airlock door is closed, the computer registers that door as being open.
Right.
And so the inner door won't open to let the people into the colony.
Yeah, it just won't budge.
And so now we find out why Brodsky requested Amanda's help. Amanda is physically a lot smaller than him, and so therefore is small enough that can fit into the vent to go up to the parts and clean them.
Yeah, conveniently she can squeeze into the vents, which is important. It establishes why she's able to crawl through all of those vents on Sevastopol later on in the story.
That's correct. And long story short, it turns out there's a really thick layer of dust that's coating like the sensor electronics.
Okay.
And this is very specifically how this happens.
Anyone with a garage door opener, like
that is, yep,
you're familiar with this. Something, you get some buildup on those sensors and your door won't close.
While she's cleaning it, she radios to Brodsky and says, when I'm done cleaning this, reboot the system. Right. And then Brodsky responds, you got it, Ripley, rebooting now, and immediately starts the procedure.
Yeah.
The problem is that the reboot sequence automatically opens the external airlock door. And so if she's not done cleaning it, when that door opens, those 5 people in there are just going to be sucked out into space.
Yeah, man. What an idiot.
So they would of course die once that lock depressurizes. So she goes panic mode and basically fixes it by switching the wires for the doors. Right. Like the reboot causes the outer door to open, but then she switches the wires to the doors so that when the reboot opens the door, that wiring now goes to the inner door, which slides open and the people can come out.
Smart, quick thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she even says it was like in like her inner monologue even says that it's like it was really easy to do, but it will take forever to fix after the fact, you know?
Right. Yeah. That's the problem. The quote unquote problem. Right.
Correct. And then it cuts to a couple of days later, and it's Amanda, Zula, Brodsky, and their boss Dimitri, and they're in a meeting with like 3 suits from Weyland-Yutani, who are like taking legal depositions about the incidents. And Brodsky, during his deposition, insists that Amanda simply said, "Reboot it." So he was under the assumption that she had been done cleaning it, you know? And of course, Amanda goes up there and says, "No, I said when I was done." And then like Amanda's like, "Well, you know, this sucks because they're probably not gonna, you know, go in my favor." And then like one of the Weyland-Yutani guys straight up says, like before he gives a thing, he's like, "Well, it's basically one person's word against the other. The problem is that one of them is a certified engineer with years of experience, and the other one is a high school dropout that has a history of legal trouble and ratted out her previous boss." Right. And Amanda's like, "Son of a bitch, I fucking knew this was going to happen."
Like they also probably brought up the Paul shit in that. Everyone keeps bringing up Paul, you know?
Yeah, I think they did. And then Zula, who's sitting right next to Amanda, is basically like, "Man, fuck this." And she's like, "I was there at that day at that incident, and I would like to give some testimony."
And I'm a goddamn colonial Marine. Do you really
want to? And they're like, okay, who are you? And she's like, "Private First Class Colonial Marine Zula Hendricks." And they're all like, "Ooh, ooh la la."
Well, we can't challenge the military.
And they're basically like, "All right, what's your testimony? Tell us what happens in your own words." And Zula's like, "I don't need to, because Amanda's words are the accurate representation of what happened. Right. Brodsky is lying to you. His claims are false. What Amanda said happened is what happens." And then Brodsky fucking flips and he's like, "That is not what fucking happened. I cannot believe you could say that." And then like the Weyland-Yutani people are like, "Are you prepared to take this to a military court? Are you implying that a colonial Marine is purposely falsifying testimony?" And Brodsky's like, and just sits down.
Yeah, man. Fuck that guy.
And so, long story short, Amanda does get promoted, again, not to full engineer because she still doesn't have her certificate.
Right.
But she does get promoted to, like, you know, technician something or another. I don't remember what it is.
Yeah.
And then Brodsky gets fired and Weyland-Yutani files charges against him.
Good. Fuck that guy. That pretty much brings us up to speed to where Amanda Ripley is just working on repairing some piece of technology for Dimitri on Luna, right?
Mm-hmm.
When she's approached by a man named Samuels who tells her that he works for the company.
Mm-hmm.
And she's kind of like exasperated at this, right? A little bit, but she's nice enough to him, and she kind of like wants to get him coffee and sort of asks him what the deal is. And he says, "We might have some information on your mother. Somebody found the flight recorder for the USCSS Nostromo. It is on a space station, Sevastopol Station, in the Zeta 2 Reticuli system. We are setting off to go retrieve it in person because it is proprietary Weyland-Yutani tech. And there's a spot for you on the ship if you'd like to go."
And the reason this conversation is significant is because this is the opening cutscene of the game. So we've finally caught up timeline-wise to the events of the game proper.
Yes. Now, Kenny, I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
We've been doing this now for an hour and 28 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Should this be a two-parter? Should this be released as Alien Isolation Origins? And then we also put out a second episode of the Alien Isolation Sevastopol stuff. What do you think? Should we just break it here?
I'm okay with making this 2 episodes. I don't think I realize we've already been going for an hour and a half.
Yeah, I think we should break it here. Let's go ahead and call it. So let's do a couple of quick plugs. Man, where can people find you on the internet?
My Twitter handle is at CYHOBBEZ. I mostly tweet about stuff I'm playing or stuff that I'm watching for the most part. So if you want to see what kind of video games I'm in the middle of, come by and check it out.
You can find me on Twitter at Final Neal, and on Instagram at Final Neal Retro. If you want to know what kind of video games I've been playing Quake 2 on the Nintendo 64. Kenny, where can people find our show?
Our Twitter handle is at Crew Expenda Pod. Our Instagram is at Crew Expendable Pod, and our website is crewexpendable.net.
That's right. And we would love it if you checked out our show on Goodpods. Goodpods is a fun podcasting app with some social media aspects where you can follow people and see what they've been listening to. And I use it. It's fun. You can follow me on there at Final Neal. And we would just love it if you left us some positive reviews anywhere you can, really. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I think you can review on Podcast Addict even.
Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, is what I use.
Yeah, I use it too, but I also use Goodpods. And of course, on Goodpods, you can review individual episodes and the show as a whole. So follow us on there, and we will be back soon with part 2 of Alien Isolation, the Sevastopol stuff. Until then, stay frosty.